Hey, good Saturday evening, everybody. Got an update for you on our ongoing major winter storm and what is shaping up to potentially be a second major winter storm later this coming week. We're going to break it all down for you this evening. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so and hit that bell for the latest notifications while you're at it. That'll make sure you're up to date with the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance as we continue this very active stretch of weather over the next week, plus potentially even as the pattern could stay this active well into January. Also, go ahead and like the video, comment, let me know where you're watching from. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump right on into things. Now, what you're seeing right here, as I was kind of giving you the intro, is what is expected over the next week or so from our GFS American model, showing that ongoing major winter storm and then showing another storm by this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that rides up through the southeast, potentially producing southern snow and ice, and the potential that that could even ride all the way up the East Coast with a lot of moving parts that we're still trying to figure out here as we go into this week. But before we even get there, let's talk about what's happening right now, because we're seeing major impacts from this big time winter storm that is working through portions of the plains currently, now getting into the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic. And some folks, this is just the beginning, as through the night tonight conditions will continue to deteriorate and go downhill. And because of that, we still have blizzard warnings up for Kansas City, all the way back into Topeka, Wichita, back into Manhattan and Salina, Kansas, and then all the way from St. Louis into the Mid-Atlantic. We're including areas like DC, Richmond, Cincinnati, Louisville, Indianapolis, Baltimore, and just south of Philadelphia into southern New Jersey, and the entire state of Delaware under a winter storm warning for major snow and ice on the way from this storm system. And get this, that's not the end of it. You see these yellow boxes down into Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Those are tornado watches for an area of potential active severe weather this afternoon and into the evening. So we're seeing it all, a very dynamic storm system that's bringing basically everything with it as it crosses the country. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive right into the latest model guidance and tell you what you can expect left with this storm system. Now, we're going to go ahead and start here in the Central Plains. Right now, that snow continuing in St. Louis into portions of Kansas City, ice to the south of St. Louis, but everywhere north of there, seeing big-time snowfall totals and blizzard conditions back here into Kansas, from Kansas City all the way down towards Wichita and Topeka. Now, through the night tonight, this will continue. This area of snow will continue swinging on through, and by the time we get to about 6, 7, 8 o'clock Central Time, the snow will begin to taper off in Kansas, but continuing into the state of Missouri there, and will also fall later on tonight as we close in on the midnight hour, seeing that light snow still on the backside of this storm before waking up tomorrow, and we're clearing out, and it's time to dig out of what was obviously going to be some pretty big major snow accumulations and ice accretion in many places through this part of the country. Now let's move it east here into the Ohio Valley. Big time storm here as well. This is really just the beginning of it right now. Big ice, big snow, all falling currently in this part of the country. Kentucky getting it good, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, into the heart of Illinois, seeing big time winter weather this afternoon. And that continues this evening. This is into right about the time the sun is going down, probably 6, 7 o'clock Central Time here, seeing major ice continuing into Louisville, Lexington, snow probably up into Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and back into Springfield, Illinois. And at this point, the snow would have already accumulated for a while, or the ice, depending on what's falling, and will continue into the overnight. Now, should taper off a little bit more as we get closer to about the midnight hour. A bit of a dry slot working in over much of Kentucky, but snow continuing to fall through Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and here comes that light snow on the backside that could drop a quick dusting upwards of a couple of inches through the evening. And when we're waking up tomorrow morning here, still seeing some of that snow and ice lingering right over the Ohio Valley, but clearing out for most of us in this region of the country. And I think by the time we get to tomorrow late in the afternoon, and especially right here when the sun is setting and going down on the end of your Monday, much nicer conditions. But once more, going to be digging out of whatever fell throughout today and overnight tonight. All right, final region that's under the gun with the current winter storm, that is the Mid-Atlantic. We had a bit of a surprise earlier today through the Greensboro area. Heavy wet snow just north of there up into southwestern Virginia, and this is accumulating quickly. I've seen reports of 2 to 4 inches already on the ground in and around Blacksburg through the Roanoke area just north of the Triad in North Carolina. Probably surprising some folks there with that first round of snow. That will clear out a little bit through this afternoon, and by the time we get to this evening, closer to the time the sun is setting, that snow will move north towards DC, and that's when the winter storm begins for you folks. As the sun is going down, light snow working in, and once we get to about midnight pictured here, a big snowstorm into northern West Virginia, northern Virginia, ice to the south of there along the North Carolina and Virginia state line here, seeing that icy mess, and then the snow into DC, Baltimore, Fredericksburg, through much of the DMV and into the Delmarva, beginning to get in on those higher end snowfall totals later tonight. We'll move this further ahead. By the time we're waking up Monday morning, January 6th, major winter storm continuing through the northern mid-Atlantic, Philadelphia, southern half of New Jersey, into the heart of the Delmarva, the DMV. Snow will be piling up quickly. Those big, heavy, wet snowfall flakes coming down. That could cause problems for the power grid. That's going to hit those power lines, and these are heavy snowflakes. These are not those nice kind of dry flakes that you can brush off easy. This will definitely weigh down on tree limbs, power lines, and cause nearly impossible travel in many places through Virginia and northern portions of North Carolina into the mountains, all the way up through the mid-Atlantic into Maryland, Delaware, and southern New Jersey, and even southern half of Pennsylvania. Now, through the day Monday, that snow continues. A little bit of a dry slot in the afternoon will calm things down somewhat Monday afternoon through Washington, D.C., back down into much of the state of Virginia. Then another little burst on the backside of snow. This can produce another quick couple of inches through the Delmarva into D.C., and then finally, by the time we get close to midnight going from Monday to Tuesday, the storm clears out and much nicer conditions by the time we get to Tuesday morning, here pictured below. So definitely an active scene out that way. Now, how much snow is left to come for these areas? Well, a good amount. We're still talking 3 to 5 plus inches into Kansas and Missouri. Now, some of this probably already has fallen, but this is from about noon this afternoon all the way into the rest of the storm, still going for nearly 6 to 7 inches there in Kansas City, and probably a similar story through much of northern Missouri. Lower totals the further south you get, but still more sleet and freezing rain, and then a little bit of back-end snow here into south central Missouri. But the places that have the most snow to come still are further east into the Ohio Valley here, the heart of southern Indiana, southern Ohio, Cincinnati, potentially still another half a foot to 8 inches on the way for many folks in this region. Same story there through central Illinois. So definitely a good amount of snow. And like I mentioned earlier, the backside could produce some snow as well through the heart of Kentucky. Probably not a lot. We're talking a dusting upwards of maybe an inch or two from that back end band. Mainly still ice to come there into central Kentucky and southern West Virginia. Now we'll move it to the mid-Atlantic. This is an area of the storm really just now cranking up. Or I guess actually before we do that, let me show you the ice in this area. And this will be the bigger concern. Like I mentioned, half an inch up to 3/10 of an inch of ice still right along the Ohio River in Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and into West Virginia, a state that's also going to get it good in the ice department out of the storm. You'll even see there into western Virginia itself, 1/4 of an inch to half an inch of ice. And then down into the mountains of the North Carolina, we could see 1/10 of an inch, which is more than enough to cause problems on those trees, power lines, and especially those roadways. You do not want to be out and about traveling in this storm. All right, now let's move into the mid-Atlantic here and show you those snow and ice totals. Heavy snow up into northern Virginia, still half a foot to 8 inches, could cross 10 inches even in and around the DC area. Same story for Baltimore. I think back towards Fredericksburg and the mountains of Maryland, that's where we could see more than a foot of snow out of this storm before all is said and done, and already getting a good thumping on the front end into southwestern Virginia. That will change to ice by this evening and overnight tonight. So whatever snow falls, gonna get compressed a little bit by ice. Which obviously is going to cause even worse travel conditions, but mostly snow through Maryland, Delaware, Philadelphia, southern New Jersey. And speaking of Philadelphia, still a good 2 to 4 inch event, 2 to 4 inches through south central New Jersey. You get all the way south in Jersey. We're talking half a foot to 10 inches, and that's definitely going to pile up, and you're going to feel it by the time you're getting out there tomorrow evening and clearing off some of those surfaces. All right, ice down here as well. We kind of already showed you this a little bit, so we'll move on, but definitely some pretty icy conditions there into Virginia and the northern mountains of North Carolina, as I mentioned earlier. Now, the problem is after the storm, and this kind of gets us into the start of our next storm system. That's the temperatures out here. We're going to see below average temperatures, this Arctic air mass flooding southward. This is this evening, right around the time the sun is going down. Here's that warm sector that could be producing severe weather in Mississippi, Louisiana, and potentially even as far east as Alabama. To the north, though, we've got temperatures in the 20s and the teens. This is creating a very tight pressure gradient. That's leading to strong winds. That's picking up some of that snow, some of that ice, leading to near blizzard conditions for millions of Americans. But after the storm leaves, that cold air is going to funnel southward. This is Tuesday afternoon, high temperatures. We're going to struggle to break freezing through the entire Ohio Valley, even down into the Tennessee Valley, only getting up into the 30s and 40s as far south as Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas. And this stays in place for a while. Look at it. Our Thursday morning low temperatures well into the 20s, all the way down almost near the Gulf Coast. We're looking at about 32 or so in Mobile, Pensacola, very cold temperatures, and that sets the stage for our next piece of energy, which works through later this coming week and sets the stage for another winter storm. Now, I want to pause the map basically right where we're at right now. So this is Monday evening, just to tell you there's still a lot of uncertainty with this storm system, and here's why. The way that we get data for our weather models is we have little locations all over the United States and even up into Canada where we send out weather balloons twice a day, once in the morning, once in the night. The energy that is associated with our next storm is not even over land yet. In fact, there's two pieces. One piece here, that'll finally move ashore this evening, so we probably won't even get the samples until tomorrow morning's model runs, but the other piece of energy is still well out over the northern Pacific, so we've got a ways to go. That probably won't even move ashore until Wednesday morning. So all the data we need to kind of predict the next storm system won't even be in until about Wednesday, and that could only be a day or two before the storm actually happens. So go easy on us, give us some patience here, and do know there will be a storm system that will produce winter weather somewhere in the south next Friday, Saturday, even potentially as early as Wednesday and Thursday through Texas. But the exact details, it's going to take some time to iron those out here as we get closer into time. With that said, let me show you the setup here. This is the latest European model straight from this afternoon, brand new information here. And we'll pause it right at kind of where all the pieces get into place. Now, this is Wednesday afternoon on the model. We've got one piece of energy over the East Coast. This is bringing cold air southward and setting the stage for whatever storm energy may get going. Our areas of spin are areas of energy to actually produce the storm itself. Well, we've got one down here near Baja, California, another up into Canada. Those are those two pieces of energy we still need to sample and get data from for this next storm system. Now, watch what happens on our European model, one of our more reliable models. Our northern piece of energy up here scoops down and grabs our southern energy and begins to move it east. Now, what happens on this model run and what has happened on multiple runs this afternoon of different models is it doesn't completely pick up the whole thing, and they kind of struggle to completely get their act together. So what this would do is bring a storm system, but a weaker storm system across the southern tier, bring some snow and bring some ice, but wouldn't be quite as favorable for a nor'easter. And what you would want for a nor'easter, if you're in the Northeast watching and you want a big snowstorm out of this, you want this northern piece to come down all the way, grab up all of this southern piece, and then kick it off through the Ohio Valley. And that's what the models were showing last night. They very well could flip back to that. Like I said, we still have to sample this data, so they're going to go back and forth. We're going to get that windshield wiper effect, as we call it here with the models. So go ahead and expect that. But with a setup like that, where the European only grabs some of the energy and doesn't fully spin it up in time for a big storm, this is what it could look like on the model. Let me back it up for you. Here is Wednesday morning. All dry, but then some of that lift beginning over Texas from that southern tier energy. We get some light icing, some light snow into Thursday morning, pictured below here through Dallas and other portions of Texas. And then things really go downhill. This is Thursday afternoon and evening. We've got a big time winter storm developing across Texas, rain along the Gulf Coast, snow and ice into the interior south. That moves up into Oklahoma, Arkansas. This is Friday morning, seeing snow and ice breaking out across northern Mississippi, northern Alabama into Tennessee. And then the storm, because those pieces of energy don't fully merge together, begins to weaken a little bit. And it's a light wintry event through northern Mississippi, Alabama, extreme North Georgia, through Tennessee, and even up into Kentucky and portions of the Ohio River Valley, then gets into the Carolinas and finally begins to strengthen as it runs into more instability. That strengthens the storm right off the Carolina coast and brings a nice winter weather event from Charlotte up into Greensboro, Raleigh, southwestern Virginia, and even into portions of the Delmarva, but misses out on that big East Coast snow that maybe we saw a run or two ago. Reminder though, things can and they will change, and we'll have more time to kind of digest the data here. Now, what about the GFS? The latest model run from the GFS will kind of move it right ahead to where we were. Here are our pieces of energy, piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3. Now, watch what happens on this model run. It's kind of similar, really very similar to the afternoon European run. It doesn't completely pick up all of the energy. It gets some of it, and that does strengthen up the storm a little bit more than the European. Slightly more favorable phasing of these pieces of energy together by the weekend. And that translates to a bigger storm on the model. And I'll show you what that looks like right now. Here it is. This is the afternoon run of the American model. We'll move this ahead into time. This is into Thursday morning. By the way, time right above my head. So you see it there. This is 1 p.m. January 9th. January 9th being this coming Thursday afternoon. You see some of that snow and that rain back out into the southern plains. And I think this model's a little warm. It shows a lot of rain. I think there'll be a bit more snow than that through Texas. You see it into Oklahoma, getting into Arkansas, portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and we get a full-blown winter storm here by Friday afternoon, January 10th, over Nashville, Huntsville, Rome, Georgia. Look at this snow even trying to break out into South Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina. Big snowstorm in Little Rock off of this run, and then continues that way into the upstate of South Carolina, through Virginia, West Virginia, the Ohio Valley by Friday evening. Continues cranking up overnight Friday into Saturday. This is a pretty big winter storm event through North Carolina, I-85 North and South Carolina, the mountains of Tennessee, Virginia's up into eastern Kentucky, and the storm really gets going and produces a big snow event through southeastern Virginia, Newport News, Virginia Beach, into the Delmarva seeing snow, and then doesn't quite ride up the coast, but gets close. And like I said, I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it once more, we need the models to sample this data. They need to run that data for us to get a better idea. So I don't want you to lose hope in the Northeast. I also don't want you to assume you're in the clear in the Carolinas and Tennessee. A lot can and will change between now and Friday of this coming week when this event will finally be unfolding. And I can show that to you here in the ensembles. This is the chance of at least an inch of snow accumulating according to our European ensemble members. Here we go. This is Thursday. You can see those snow chances increasing throughout much of Texas, seeing about a 60 to 70% chance of that snowfall through Dallas and then back out into central Texas. Moving this further ahead into Friday afternoon, this stretches up into southern Arkansas through the Red River Valley, Oklahoma. This is getting past a 70% chance of accumulating snowfall more than an inch. And then watch how the chances by Saturday morning and afternoon from the Friday to Saturday time frame increase over Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, and I-85 north in South Carolina through Charlotte up into Greensboro, Raleigh. Now, these are not big numbers. These are 40, 50, 30% chances. But that's not bad at all for this time frame. But I do want you to also take it with that grain of salt that there are still other members that don't quite show the snow falling. So a lot to figure out here, and we'll move it up ahead, folks. This really isn't much worse than it was this morning for the I-95 corridor. Some of the members still crank this up into a big coastal storm, and that's what we'll watch out for, any potential changes towards that solution. Now, what about the American model and its ensemble members? Similar story here, seeing that those chances ticking up by Thursday afternoon through Texas, continuing into northern Louisiana, into Arkansas, and then right over the Tennessee Valley and the Ohio Valley, including upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina, really much of North Carolina in general. This is by Saturday morning, so this would be from Friday morning to Saturday morning. Snowfall chance accumulation. We're cracking 50% here into the mountains of North Carolina and into East Tennessee, southeastern Kentucky, and that continues up into the mid-Atlantic and even into the southern tier of the Northeast. So the signal there for a snowstorm or a winter storm or an ice storm. And speaking of ice, that will be a concern here. The model's also showing some freezing rain accretion here. A small signal there over Texas from our European members. This is Thursday into Friday. And then we get Friday into Saturday, and that signal ramps up through Mississippi, Alabama, northern Georgia, upstate of South Carolina into the Charlotte metro, and all the way up into the Raleigh-Durham area, and even Fayetteville here kind of showing some ice potential out of that run. Not a huge signal, but definitely worth mentioning from the models here. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you on this storm system, the one happening now and the one on its way here. A lot to digest here, a lot that we're going to still learn over the coming days as we begin to finally sample that data. With that said, though, y'all have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.